If a bill, a bank app notification, or an unpaid letter makes your chest tighten before you even open it, ask yourself honestly, are you living in peace, or are you just keeping fear hidden? Peace that depends on an envelope staying closed is rarely true peace. It's a false kind of comfort. The relief that comes only when the truth stays out of sight. This isn't about shame. The pressure you feel may be real. The amount may be heavy. The call may be uncomfortable. And the letter may hold news you aren't ready to face. But after those few quiet minutes when you push it aside, nothing has really changed. The number is still there. The due date hasn't disappeared. The unanswered call remains. The only thing that has changed is that the fear has quieted, just enough for you to function. Before we move on, acknowledge this honestly. You didn't receive peace. You got temporary silence in exchange for delaying the truth. That sealed envelope feels like a locked room. Inside, fear sits alone, guarding the facts and calling its control calm. It doesn't need to ruin your finances in one shocking moment. It only needs your permission to decide what you face today. This is the first revelation. The unpaid bill might not be the real master here. Sometimes, the stronger master is the relief you feel when you refuse to look. So this isn't just a budgeting issue, and it's not about prosperity either. At its core, it's a spiritual challenge around information. Fear takes power when it controls what truth you're allowed to access. The first wound isn't that the number exists. It's that fear convinces you the number is safer left unseen. Right after you avoid the bank app, you might feel strangely clear. The letter is unpaid, the call unanswered, the balance still there, but your body gets a break. Your shoulders relax, your breathing eases. You can make dinner or answer a text. You get through the next hour. That relief feels real. But real relief doesn't always mean real safety. It's like a smoke alarm with a dead battery. The room feels quieter, but it isn't safer. The sharp noise is gone, yet the danger still waits, unaddressed. If quiet becomes the goal, the alarm starts to feel like the enemy, instead of the warning it actually is. This is why financial fear can be so confusing. The APA stress reports identify money pressure as a serious burden. This isn't some abstract study. It's groceries costing more than expected, rent deadlines drawing near, and a credit card balance weighing heavily on your mind. Not having emergency savings adds even more pressure. One surprise expense might force borrowing, selling, or deciding which bill waits. So no, feeling this pressure doesn't mean you're weak. The pressure isn't imaginary. Household debt and credit strain amplify the inner noise we all feel. This is that silent calculation you make while standing in line, wondering if this purchase will make the next notification hit harder. Now, slow down. This is where fear can actually teach us something. There's a pattern called short-term anxiety reduction. Simply put, it means you avoid the thing you fear and your distress eases for a moment. Then comes avoidance reinforcement. Your brain learns, not looking helped me survive, so tomorrow it nudges you to hide again. That's the trap. The bill doesn't shrink. The app doesn't become kinder. The letter doesn't lose its power. But the relief you get after hiding trains your nervous system to associate truth with danger and avoidance with safety. Pressure becomes more dangerous when relief teaches hiding. The first escape turns into a classroom. The silence becomes instruction. That relief after avoidance may feel like mercy, but if it teaches you to hide again tomorrow, it becomes a lesson in surrender. The biblical pattern isn't vague encouragement floating above real pressure. It keeps returning to things we can touch, name, count, inspect, and answer for. It's like a ledger hidden under the floorboards. God brings it out. Not to shame the fearful, but to lay it on the table where obedience can finally confront it. That's the difference. Fear wants facts buried. Stewardship brings them into the light. In Proverbs 27:23-24, The first focus is physical: flocks, herds, and riches that won't last forever. The instruction isn't sentimental. Know well the condition of your flocks. Pay attention to your herds. Why? Because riches don't endure, and a crown doesn't pass from generation to generation. Put simply, this is walking the field instead of pretending the fence is fine. It's not panic. It's not obsession. It's the sober act of caring for what's been entrusted to you before neglect quietly multiplies. So, when you avoid the account, the letter, or the number, the deeper issue isn't just financial discomfort. It's denying your obedience access to vital information. The flock may still be there, but if you refuse to check on it, fear has already been handed the gate key. Then Jesus gives the second coordinate in Luke 14:28, -30, a tower, a foundation, sitting down and counting the cost. No one begins building, lays a foundation, and then finds out they can't finish, becoming a cautionary example of unfinished foolishness. Jesus puts calculation right at the heart of discipleship. Counting isn't unbelief. Let that settle. Counting is not the enemy of faith. In fact, counting can be the doorway where faith steps out of the fog and begins to stand on solid ground. To put it in context, this is the difference between saying, "I trust God," while refusing to open the bill, and saying, "Lord, I trust you enough to sit down and count what is actually here." That's a hard mercy. Because once the number is named, it can no longer rule you from the dark. The third coordinate is found in 2 Kings 4 to 1 and -7. A widow facing creditors, her 2 children at risk, empty borrowed jars, oil poured out, and debt paid. Notice the sequence. The miracle doesn't start with ignoring the debt. It begins after the woman clearly speaks about the pressure she's under. She names the creditor. She names the danger to her children. She names the empty jars she has to work with. The jars matter because they are not just abstract feelings. They are containers that must be gathered, brought inside, and filled. The oil answers a crisis that has already been exposed, not hidden, spoken aloud. When the oil is poured, the result is no mere spiritual gesture. The debt is paid, and the household is preserved. The plain confession of need did not block provision. It became the place where provision could meet the need. Keep these 4 objects in mind: flocks, a tower, jars, and buried money. Because Matthew 25:2023-30 gives us the 4th coordinate. Talents entrusted, a servant who digs, and a final accounting. The frightened servant doesn't waste the talent by spending it recklessly. Instead, he buries it. He hides responsibility in the ground, then uses fear as his excuse. That hits close to home. For context, fear often doesn't feel rebellious when it's burying things. It feels cautious, protective even. It says, "I'm just trying not to make it worse." But in the parable, buried responsibility still must be brought back for accounting. The ground doesn't cancel the trust. That's why the biblical contrast isn't rich versus poor, but hidden versus brought into the light. Proverbs brings the flock under inspection. Luke lays the cost openly on the table. 2 Kings pulls the debt out of silence. Matthew uncovers the buried talent from the soil. The ledger hidden under the floorboards cannot be healed while it stays hidden. The unspoken number cannot be stewarded if fear alone is left to hold it. And the unopened truth does not become gentler by remaining unopened. Here's the sober comfort. In these stories, God doesn't despise the person under pressure. Instead, he confronts the hiding that pressure tries to produce. The shift isn't from fear to financial control. It's from fear to truthful stewardship. Control says, if I can force every outcome into order, then I can finally breathe. Truthful stewardship says, I will bring what's real before God, even if my hands are still shaking. That avoided number is rarely just a number while it remains unseen. In the mind, it grows. It takes on weight. It becomes like a shadow on the wall, larger than the object that casts it, until someone finally opens the door and lets measured light in. Then the shadow shrinks. Not because the pressure disappears, but because imagination has been replaced by reality. A hidden balance can become a monster. A seen balance becomes a fact. Here is the turning point. The number may hurt, but the hidden number rules. The shepherd does not protect himself by refusing to know the flock. The builder does not call calculation unbelief. The widow does not receive help by keeping the debt vague. The servant does not escape responsibility by burying what was entrusted to him. Each witness moves the same way. The flock is inspected. The cost is counted. The debt is named. The account is given. The matter is pulled out of the dark and set where obedience can finally touch it. This is why opening the bill is not automatically panic. Reading the balance is not automatically obsession. Writing the total down is not automatically despair. It may be the first sober act after fear has guarded the door for too long. Once the number is seen, it can be prayed over. It can be planned around. It can be questioned, disputed, negotiated, paid down, or brought to someone wise enough to help you face it without flinching. There is practical mercy here. Ignoring letters can cause you to miss chances to verify claims, dispute errors, respond before pressure rises, or negotiate while there is still room to move. This is not legal advice. It is a sober warning about delay. Delayed truth does not become holiness because it is delayed. Let that sentence settle. You are not being called to pretend the number is small. You are being called to stop letting the unseen number become sovereign. Do not let it grow larger than the next faithful step. There is a closed door with a number behind it. You do not open it because the room is easy. You open it because obedience cannot begin outside the door. So tonight, the step may be small. Open the app. Read the letter. Write down the number. Call for clarification. Ask for help without turning the whole story into a trial against your future. Just one. Not the whole budget, not the whole year, not the whole fear. One act of allowing truth to be seen. Because obedience may begin before the money changes. It may begin while the balance still hurts, while the answer is still incomplete, while your hands feel tense around the phone. God is not asking you to worship the balance. He is asking you to stop letting fear guard the door. The number may not change tonight, but authority over that number can change the moment truth is allowed in. Bring the number into the light.